Hello and welcome to the show. Before we begin, apologies for the noise in the background. Today, the question that we're going to tackle is how one can go about scaling your business beyond Nigeria. And we're going to be looking at this primarily from the angle of those people who have product based businesses. Now, the reason why I'm going over this question today is because this is one of those questions that I was giving that I wouldn't say I was stumped, but once in a while during a training, I receive a question that goes a little bit beyond my area of expertise. And this is one of those questions. But still, nevertheless, I'd like to tackle it over here, or at least share how I tackled it when the question came up live in one of my trainings, so that some of you who are facing those sorts of challenges can get the benefit of my insight from a sales and business development perspective. Now, this is a question that I was asked by a lady in a live training at Avon Business Incubator. Yeah, Avon Business Incubator. So in Abuja, we have a bunch of incubators, tech hubs, those sorts of places, and I do some work for these sorts of institutions every now and then. And this is the sort of question that I was received: how do you go about scaling your business beyond Nigeria if you have a product business? Now, a couple of things to note: when people are talking about scaling a business, typically that means that they already have some sort of activity on ground. So they have validated the business idea, they have a bunch of customers, it looks like things are going good. And so they think they can expand the business, whether it's Togo, what else? Ghana, UK, America, whatever. There are people who scale beyond the shores of Nigeria. So it is it's a relevant question. So, like I said, the lady who asked me this question was in the beauty space. And like I pointed out, it's beyond my areas of expertise and it's kind of complicated anyway. That's relative to the sort of things that we discuss here on the podcast. Because if you notice over here on the podcast, we talk about primarily personal selling and how that relates to business growth. Those are situations where you're communicating with someone one on one because you have a particular product you're trying to sell or an agenda that you're trying to move forward. So, if you look at things from that angle, personal selling, sometimes sales strategy, then these sorts of topics, kind of becomes a little bit complicated. Now, my response is first off, you have to understand the market, you have to do a bunch of research on the target market. You have to look at demographics. Since we're talking about beauty products here, makeup and things like that, you have to look at beauty trends and then the presence of competitors. And this was, to be honest, this is one of those questions that made me a little, what's the word? I'm not sure. No, not uncomfortable. Iffy. Because it's a question that I put out there and I wondered myself, do we need a Nigerian makeup brand in the UK market when it is already a saturated UK market? And you also have a bunch of people who are trying to sell products that are targeted at women of African descent. Women of African descent who have dark skins. So I was wondering, do you really need to throw a Nigerian makeup brand into that mix? Because I think it's kind of saturated enough. But anyway, who am I to kill anybody's dreams? So, but these are the sort of things that you have to look at. You have to look at the target market. So, if you already have things popping off here in Nigeria, and you're thinking, let me expand to Ghana, to Togo, to Australia, to America, to the UK. In this case, the lady was thinking about the UK. You have to ask yourself all those sorts of questions. So, if you're thinking maybe Australia, but you're thinking Sydney, and maybe Sydney is, I don't know, I'm just guessing. Let's just say Sydney. Should I be guessing? Let me just go ahead and guess anyway. Of course, if I get it wrong, no disrespect to my Australian listeners. So let's say Sydney is maybe 98% Caucasian, for instance. So these are the sort of things you're going to look at. If Sydney is 98% Caucasian, you have this beauty brand that is popping off here in Nigeria, would it make sense that you should be looking at Sydney to expand to, since it's mostly Caucasians that are there and you don't have Africans, immigrants, people of African descent, what are they called? Indigenous folks, all those sorts of things. So those are the sorts of questions that you have to ask. Then, another reason why it's kind of complicated is because when you're talking about makeup, you're now in that space where you have to start looking at regulations. What are the regulations concerning the import and the export of products like these? Because these sorts of things are a safety concern. Now, let us remove the lax enforcement environment that we have in Nigeria, because the laws are there about what you can import and what you can't import. But you step into any shop and all the products are there, all kinds of creams, whitening creams, based carrots, whitening creams, tomatoes, whitening creams based on, like all kinds of things are out there in the market, including things that are supposed to be illegal. You can find it all. If you want it, you can find it. But so if you remove Nigeria's lax environment, I'm sure that if you try other countries, UK, Australia, wherever, you'll find that there are going to be real tough and stringent regulations on what you can import and what you can't import. Okay, well, beauty is not my space, so well, let me just guess. Maybe they have quinine in some of the products. Okay, no, not quinine. Quinine, that's malaria. Let's see, beauty products, creams. Carotene, yes, carotene. Carotene is in carrots, carotene is in tomatoes and in pawpaw, and it can be used as a lightening agent. So I'm sure that in, let's say, America, for instance, or in the UK, they have strict requirements of, yes, you can make whatever face cream you want, but you can't put, this percent of carotene beyond a certain, per milligram or something. So all those things are there, and you have to do the research on what the import and export regulations are, and make sure that you comply before you start running a bunch of stuff, because you don't want it to be that it's popping off in Nigeria, you think it's a good thing, you say, "Hey, we can run it now," then you say you try to branch out to the UK, and then you find out that you run foul of a couple of laws, and before you know it, it's police baby and all that. Then okay, now you also have to look at what your export strategy is going to be. And typically, no surprise, since my area of specialty is personal sales, these sorts of things always default to direct sales. It's kind of like my default. So I would say go to international trade shows and beauty expos, whether they're being hosted in Lagos. Maybe you travel, you go and see your auntie in Toronto or whatever. Attend shows and go around, meet people, you show your product, talk to a bunch of people. It might be a way of validating whether you have a business idea in these sorts of markets. You might get to meet other stakeholders, start growing your networks. These are places where you might find possible distribution partners. So, for someone who is thinking of getting into this sort of business, expanding, growing beyond Nigeria, the shores of Nigeria, this is not a bad way to go about it and do research. So, it's kind of my default to, this whole one-on-one direct contact, body contact. That's my default basically. So doing direct sales will not be a bad way of building up your export strategy. That's from an emergent standpoint. Talking to people, trying figuring out what is there, and that will help you to develop your sales strategy. Then, of course, there's also establishing an online presence, which is part of what the lady was contemplating. That's apart from export and yeah, apart from export, there's the whole thing of having an online presence and then working out fulfillment. So there are different kinds of platforms that you can, with international shipping options, that you can put your stuff on. So, Amazon, Etsy. Okay, forgive me. I should have done some research to see, to what extent Etsy is available in Nigeria and stuff like that. So, I'm sure you guys can access Etsy, but yeah, I just haven't been able to figure out if, like all those people who do arts and crafts, like in Abuja here, like all these people, baggy artisans, for instance. So if you get authentic baggy art, I'm sure you can put it on Etsy. But I wanted to do some research. I can't remember what the question was, just to figure out how easy the whole thing is. Setting up your Etsy store, how you're going to handle the what's it called, fulfillment. So the person has paid, how you're going to ship. All that back end stuff. So I should make a note of that and still do that research, so that next time we're talking about online platforms, I can give you guys a much more educated response on that. Then Okay, there's also indirect sales. That's where you partner with international distributors or wholesalers that are familiar with that target market. That is the reason why I say these sorts of things. Direct body contact, going to international trade fair, things like that. That's why it's important, because all the people that you're going to be doing the indirect sales with, these are the ways that you might meet those people. To say you're going to stay here in your room or in your office and do a Google search and then come up with a bunch of international distributors, it can work. But if you can afford to go and do some body contact and show up in these shows, I would recommend that. That's how you'd find partners, international distributors, and wholesalers. Then let's see what else. Okay, there's also the matter of logistics and fulfillment. Shipping is going to be really important. You have to choose reliable shipping partners with experience in international deliveries and customs clearance and all those sorts of things. Now, this is something I can speak to firsthand because of me and my brother trying to export charcoal and agricultural commodities. So this is something we have faced firsthand. You don't pick the right partners, and you start losing money on the trade from day one. So let's say trucking companies. You pick a trucking company, well, for the sale of charcoal anyway, you pick a trucking company that's unreliable, they don't show up on time, so your charcoal stays in the field for too long, moisture content starts climbing depending on which season it is, and then because of that, they drive late, you miss your shipment, on and on and on and on, and that's how you start losing profits in these sorts of things. So, logistics, fulfillments, you're going to have to lock those things down. Your partners have to be reliable. You need people with experience in international deliveries. Yeah, like I said, customs clearance, because it also is a nightmare where you deal with people, your stuff gets to customs, and anything just hangs, and people don't know how to move the thing forward. As a wedding photographer, I faced that once because I had stuff that was being made in Salt Lake City in America. Some frames, no, not frames. Well, they could make frames, but it was customized USBs, customized flashes. That's with photos of the couple on it, and the books got in okay, but then that was the time that Nigerian customs went on strike, and I'm here in Abuja, and the bride is expecting her stuff. She really loves the album, but then customs goes on strike, and I'm like, what kind of rubbish is this? And of course, at the time, I didn't have anybody in Lagos, but luckily the bride was like, "Oh no, it's on the news. We know it's Nigeria. This sort of thing happened," and I was like, "Wow, thank God she was understanding. If not, could have been a nightmare." So all these things happen. Then inventory management also becomes a big issue here. If you're going to be expanding, even if it's just common Ghana that you're expanding to, inventory management is a big deal. Inventory, how will I explain inventory? Okay, inventory. The idea behind inventory management is I sell makeup. Okay, in this case, let's stick to makeup. I sell makeup. I'm doing pretty good. I sell 50,000 units of makeup in Nigeria, but then I'm thinking of expanding to Ghana. So, how much stock should I prepare in Ghana or prepare for the Ghanaian market to make sure that I still have enough to fulfill the orders in Nigeria? And yeah, so that's the sort of thing. Anyway, inventory management basically is stock management. How much raw material do I have to make the product that I need to sell here, to sell over there, to sell everywhere? So that's what inventory management is. Am I keeping things too long on the shelf? Because if you keep things too long on the shelf, you are effectively losing money because you're keeping capital tied up that is not doing anything. Now, you can see how I say when I receive some of these questions, I'm a little bit stumped because I'm a layman. So inventory management, yeah, I can tell you what inventory management is, but that's not my area of specialty. So if you call me in and you say I should do inventory management for you, verily, verily, I say unto thee, your business shall flop. So, but these are the sort of things that you should be paying attention to. Now, when it comes to inventory management, all the things that we've been saying so far over here on the podcast about CRM solutions, customer relationship management solutions, I've been talking about how you can use an Excel sheet or your mobile phone as a substitute for a CRM. This kind of thinking is not going to work when it comes to inventory management. So to say you're going to be using your phone to be doing inventory management for shipments that are going out to Ghana, and then you're still trying to manage inventory for your Lagos customers, is going to be a stretch. You're going to need something a little bit much more sophisticated. What will you need? I don't know, because I'm not an inventory management specialist. But if you're on this lady's particular situation, these are the sorts of things that you have to start Googling. Go to Google, research it. Go to ChatGPT, research it. Go to YouTube, watch a bunch of videos. At the very least, you will get much more educated, so that when you have to start talking to other people who are good at inventory management, store management, cash flow management, all these sorts of things, you will know the right questions to ask. Now, finally, here are some resources to consider. You guys can check out Smidan as a small and medium enterprises development authority of Nigeria, if I got the name correctly. So Smidan, these are the sorts of things that they do. So they want to promote small and medium enterprises in Nigeria, and of course, since a bunch of SMEs grow big here and then start trying to export stuff, even if it's just shea butter to Ghana that they're exporting, that is still international trade. So international trade is not the primary focus of Smidan, but since they're trying to promote small and medium scale enterprises, you should be able to find useful resources there. Like, okay, I'm a Nigerian babe, this business is rocking, we're doing good in Lagos, I want to see how we can stretch and enter Ghana. Or I found some people that I think might be good international distributors. Let's see how we can stretch. We can enter UK or we can enter Canada. What resources are available, blah blah blah, all those sorts of things. I found that some of the Smedan staff that I've come across anyway, not just in person, but then also some of the officials that I see on TV. It looks like these are the kind of things that they like, because if they provide support, the whole thing does well. These are the kind of what are they called? Like features that they like to do on channels, TV and NT and everything, to show that, Smidan is working, because these are people that we've promoted and this is the assistance that we've lent and stuff like that. Then, for those of you thinking of doing trade on the African continent, the AF is one of these convoluting things, AFCTCA or something. Basically, the African Free Trade Continental Treaty and something something. Just Google the African Free Trade Continental Treaty and the act will come up. You can find some resources there, lots of provisions around how to do trades, not just in goods but also in services across the African continent. In fact, one of my students, in quote, well, not really my student, because actually she was my classmate, a very long time ago, and then she sees I'm into podcasting. She's a specialist in the African Free Trade Continental Treaty. She wants to start a podcast on the subject. We had a conversation about it. I put her through, and our podcast is doing very well. So they are specialists in the AFCT something something A. By the way, those of you who are in that field, the next time you guys have a meeting at the African Union or whatever it is, can you guys propose a simpler name? Because for those of you who are specialists, yes, you guys know it all the time. And every time I say it, somebody corrects me that, no, it's not AFCT, and they say the correct thing. But the thing is, for we average folk, everyday folk, for people like me and like Momsy and, my friends who are not specialists in these sorts of things, it's a mouthful. You guys, please change the name. Then there's also Nexim. I think that's the Nigerian Export Import Bank or something. Forgive me, I'm running on freestyle. I should not be. But these are some of the resources that are out there. I think I've seen them at a few events, and I think we studied them back in school. So Nexim, something you guys can look at. Then there's also BOI, Bank of Industry. So Bank of Industry is not Bank of Industry. They're not export is not their thing, like Smedan. But like I said, since they try to support Nigerian what's that word? Nigerian enterprise, and since they do lots of public education programs on channels TV, I've seen them on NTA. I think there's even one of them that is on AIT. They like success stories, to show we're working. So if your business is popping off and it looks like they can be helpful in terms of money or helpful resources or things like that, they like to get behind these sorts of things so that they can thump their chest and promote, create features on public TV to show that Nigeria is working. So yeah, so check. These are the sorts of things that you guys should be looking for or looking at, and these are the sorts of specialists that you should be looking for if you have these sorts of questions. Anyway, that's the limit of what I can say. I guess you've seen that I mentioned some things that from a sales and business development perspective, the part where I was talking about direct sales and then finding international distributors and stuff like that. So, yes, I may have been able to say one or two helpful things, but this is actually something that is beyond my wheelhouse. But one useful tip, however, take advantage of whatever resources that people offer, because at this event, I gave my opinions just like I did here, and I was willing to talk on other sales related aspects of her journey if she would get in touch with me one on one, so that we would talk. Especially especially on the part where I was talking about trade fairs and then dealing with other stakeholders like distributors and things like that. So I made myself available, but the lady didn't call. Also, there was somebody amongst the cohort, a classmate, same member of the session, who claimed to have useful resources and experience in these sorts of things. And I told the person, okay, that's good. You all should hook up. So, madam, why don't you call this guy? So between talking to him, talking to me, you might get one or two ideas. So I was in touch with the other guy later on because me and him, we had some runs that we had to follow up on, and the lady was not in touch. So if you are in this situation where you're trying to solve this sort of business problem or any sort of business problem, and you meet two or three people who say they can help, take the phone call, take the meeting. Then, if the meeting is productive or unproductive, then you can either qualify the person and spend more time, or disqualify the person and throw away the person's phone number, depending on how productive or unproductive the meeting was. But still, take whatever resources that you can find, take whatever helping hand that you can get. Because it was not just this young lady, but there are other people that I've come across. And I find it quite strange anyway, that you attend these sorts of things, you say that there's this problem, there's some excitement, people are willing to help, and then you don't follow up on anybody who offered a hand. So if you're in this situation, if people offer a hand, take it. If it's useful, continue. If it's not useful, delete the person's number. Because yes, it's possible that there might be young men there who want to collect your phone number just because you're a fine babe and you're sharp. So they think, okay, if I marry this one, I'll marry into wealth. So anyway, that's all for today. Please connect with me on WhatsApp. The phone number 080-6466-2140. The country code is +234. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Tavishima Ayede. I'm the host of the show. You can confirm the spelling of my name and email address from the link where you're currently listening to this episode. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.